Hello everyone. Our topic this week was requested by Aurelio De Primus. We'll be going over Mallow from the Mario RPG. Spoilers for Mario RPG later.
Okay, so to help establish Mallow's story, we've got to do some quick background setup for the game. Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars is set in the Mushroom Kingdom. Big surprise from a Mario game. Much more uniquely, the bad guy of the game is a creature named Smithy, who comes from a factory world where he literally forges sentient weaponry that act as his subordinates. Smithy's goals, minions, and powers are so great that even series-long rivals Bowser and Mario join forces in order to take Smithy on. The enemy of my enemy is my friend and all that. When the game begins, Mario and Bowser are in the midst of their age-old battle over the safety of Princess Peach, when they are interrupted by the invasion of Smithy's forces in a cataclysmic attack that sends the three of them flying to different regions of the kingdom, while simultaneously accidentally destroying the Star Road, ensuring that no wishes could be made while the road was scattered into pieces. Mario starts off the game alone, but along the way gains a party of allies to aid in his quest, much like any RPG. The very first ally you befriend in the game is Mallow.
So Mallow is a Nimbus, a race unique to the Mario RPG game that are seemingly sentient clouds, or at least cloud-like beings. All known Nimbuses have cloud-like bodies. The only in-game description we're given describes them as balls of fluff, so perhaps they're more cotton-like than cloud-like in substance, but Nimbuses definitely have a connection to storm clouds in more than just name. As a species, they seem to have varying levels of ability to influence the weather. For example, when Mallow himself cries, his tears are usually accompanied by an impromptu rainstorm, with a handful of other Nimbuses being shown to have similar storm-related abilities. In Mallow's case particularly, he acts as one of the game's primary mages, with several big area of effect storm and lightning-related magical attacks at his disposal even early on in the game. Mechanically, he's very much a classic mage archetype. High mana values, lots of magic power, but very low life compared to the rest of the group. Though interestingly, his defenses are surprisingly high, making him one of the player's more formidable damage dealers, particularly against large groups of enemies. Unfortunately for them, the Nimbuses also seem to be universally dumb. Or at least really trusting and easy to manipulate, with Mallow being no exception. More details on that later.
Despite his potential combat prowess, Mallow as a person is far less imposing than his abilities might leave one to believe. He is essentially the youngest character in the party and easily goes through the most character growth throughout the game, starting as a self-admitted crybaby, tearing up at what many would consider even the most minor of setbacks. While we probably wouldn't call him a coward, he begins the game as a relatively timid individual with a severe lack of self-confidence. It's even possible to find a wish he'd made upon a star which reads, "I wish I weren't such a crybaby." But as the game progresses, his timidity slowly fades. He begins to gain confidence in himself as he comes to learn who and what he truly is. By the end of things, he's a comparatively calm young Cloud. Growing from a childlike character, nervous about what comes next, certain that all of this adventure was far too big for little old him, into a more calm, steadfast individual ready to continue fulfilling responsibilities he discovered during the game. Because on top of everything else in his life, the young Mallow is a prince.
The rulers of the Nimbus people are a couple known simply as King and Queen Nimbus. They rule Nimbus Land, a kingdom literally up in the clouds, only reachable either by flying bus or a giant beanstalk. Hey. All indications are that they have spent their lives ruling their people in kindness and equity, sponsors of the arts and keepers of menageries. At some point, they bore young Mallow, but somehow, it is never explained, he was lost. Like Moses of old, Mallow was washed down a series of rivers in a basket until he was discovered by the venerable Frogfucius, an amphibious hermit of no small renown. When Frogfucius found this little ball of fluff tucked away in the floating basket, he quickly recognized that the boy had tremendous magical talent, and recognized also that the child would one day be very important. The only clue to the young Nimbus's identity was a belt with the name Mallow on it, so Frogfucius raised Mallow as his own grandchild. Oddly, they make a note of Frogfucius being particularly wise and able to stay current on the ever-shifting events of the day despite his relatively remote home. Yet despite this, Frogfucius never gives any indication that he even knew Nimbuses like Mallow existed. So instead, he raised the young Cloudling as a tadpole, just like all of the other tadpoles at Frogfucius' little pond, which Mallow was innocent enough to believe, despite the fact that he looked nothing like a frog or a tadpole, nor could he swim or jump as well as his tadpole and frog brethren, which was one of the contributing factors to his lack of self-confidence. After all, a cloud person is clearly the worst frog in the pond. In fact, one of the things that Mallow truly admired about Mario early on was Mario's incredible jumping skill, because, this cloud somehow believed he was a frog.
Years passed, Mallow being raised as a tadpole and schooled by Frogfucius just like the other tadpoles, Mallow's powers and control over them growing as he did, until the events of the game begin. Mario was traveling the land looking for Peach and answers to what was going on early in the game, when he first encountered Mallow. Mallow, for his part, had been sent to town to buy Frogfucius a cricket pie, because apparently, not only do they have those in a town of mushroom people, they don't in a town of frog people. But along the way, Mallow's money was stolen by bandits, and unable to catch the thieves, he burst into tears, summoning a downpour. Mario offered to help the young Mallow retrieve his stolen coins, and the two set off to track down the bandits, battling and eventually retrieving Mallow's money. They made a few other stops before Mallow suggested returning to the pond so that Mario could meet Frogfucius.
It was at this point that the first hints of the nature and scope of the trouble Smithy had caused were given, with Frogfucius urging Mario to collect the remaining Star Road fragments. Mario and Mallow had already found one by then. The Hermit Frog wasn't completely certain of what the fragments were, but he had his suspicions, which would ultimately turn out to be correct. Mario needed to collect all the Star Road fragments in order to reforge the Star Road, ensuring that wishes could once again be granted, while also defeating Smithy so that the world would not fall under the evil Forge Master's reign. Once this was all revealed, Frogfucius delivered the final and most surprising revelation. Mallow wasn't a tadpole. A fact that took only Mallow by surprise. Frogfucius then told Mallow the truth of how he'd been found and raised, and urged the young Mallow to accompany Mario on his journey, both to save the world and perhaps, one day, find his parents. Mallow reluctantly accepted this quest, heading off with Mario on a lead that Frogfucius gave them for finding a new star fragment. As the game passes, they would continue to make allies and find star fragments before eventually finding themselves in Nimbus Land, where we learned that Mallow's, naivete seems to be common among his people.
When the group arrived in Nimbus Land, there was a brief moment of surprise in realizing, hey, there are a bunch of Mallows here, before a major political announcement was made. According to Valentina, a former advisor to the Nimbus throne, the king and queen had long been sick, and there was concern over the fate of the kingdom since Prince Mallow had long been missing. However, lucky for the Nimbus, Valentina had found the young prince, meaning even if the king and queen died, all was well. She then presented a giant bird, claiming it was Prince Mallow, followed by the declaration that the fake prince had proposed to Valentina, making the two of them the reigning monarchs in the absence of the sick king and queen. And everyone bought it! Not a single citizen batted an eye. Everyone was like, cool! And Mallow, after hearing that declaration, had a reaction that basically boiled down to, huh, what a coincidence, that cloud person prince has the same name as me. Well, anyway, on with our mission. Indeed, it wasn't until a meeting with a local sculptor who had long worked for the royal family and had an old statue of King Nimbus from his youth, which bore a striking resemblance to young Mallow, that anyone seemed to put two and two together. The sculptor finally realized that the bird wasn't the prince, and Mallow finally realized that he was. The sculptor then smuggled the group into the palace, disguised as statues, allowing Mallow and co. to search for his parents. The king and queen were found locked away in a room somewhere in the palace, and then Valentina and her bird were chased down and defeated, restoring King and Queen Nimbus to their throne. Nimbus's rulers were overjoyed to have their son return to them, and they proudly wished fondly for Mallow's success when he opted to continue helping Mario with the Star Road and Smithy problems. Throughout the rest of the game, Mallow stalwartly aids Mario and co., growing into at least a slightly more princely person all the while, until finally they succeeded, defeating Smithy and repairing the Star Road. Afterward, Mallow finally returned home to Nimbus Land, taking his place as prince of his people.
And that's basically Mallow, Prince of the Nimbuses. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and share it with somebody you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, do like Aurelio de Primus and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos, hit that subscribe button, and if you'd like to see our Let's Plays, follow the link in the description and subscribe to our Let's Play channel.
In the meantime, this has been
True Masters and Morons, signing off.